Hi, everybody, and welcome to the iRock Knits podcast. I'm Corey Eichelberger, and it is Monday, July 20th at about 2:40 in the afternoon. I have spent the morning getting ready, and I had a long phone conversation with a friend, and that I wasn't really prepared to take the time out of the morning to have it, but I'm really glad I did. I talked to her for a long time, about an hour, so I'm a little, slower today. I just want to apologize for last week's video kerfuffle that I had. I'll tell you what happened. I tried to be fancy and put in a little video edit that I had gotten from the internet. And when I went to put it in, to drop it in, I had to trim the original video behind it. And when I went on my phone and trimmed it, of course that saves to all other devices. I'm sure you knew that. So the trimmed piece was all that was out there. And I stay up late, and so it was, 1:30 in the morning, and I usually upload it to private. It takes about an hour now with the new cord, and I don't mark it till public till I look at it to make sure that there's no music playing throughout the entire video, as some of you will well remember. But I watched it for probably a minute or so, and it looked good. Not long enough, because I think it was like 2 minutes and 15 seconds in, it went black. And so I woke up in the morning to many of you leaving very kind remarks, and I had to take it down, and then uploading during the day takes a little longer, and I had an appointment that day, so I left it running while I was gone, and I left it on public, and I came home and it didn't go. So then I had to reconnoiter things and get it up for you. So thank you for your patience. This is still a learning process for me, I guess. I know I've said this before, and especially as a parent, when you're present in your days, they seem to go slowly, right? The minutes pass slowly, the hours, you're present, you're kind of watching the time. And then you look back and the months have gone so fast. So the days can go slowly, the hours can go slowly, but the years and months go so quickly. Before you know it, you turn around and your child is 23, right? That's how I feel about this. Like, we're staying home mostly. We have opened up a little bit here, but the days go slowly. I have plenty of time in my days to accomplish things, to get things done. But it's July 20th. I mean, it's just going to be fall before we know it, and it's just a weird, I'm sure there's a time-space continuum about that somewhere. Anyway, I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for all your comments. Wow, did you guys have lots to say last time? So I'll do that at the end when I do the hellos. But yeah, that was really fun. So I type up my podcast notes now ahead of time. It takes me a little longer, but I think I'm a little more organized, and I have to use them for show notes later anyway. So I have now added to the top of the podcast notes the order of things, what I am wearing, so that I don't forget, because almost every week I either forget to tell you or I remember at the end and then I have to come back in and edit it. So today I am wearing my Juliet sweater. It is by Sarah Moore, and this will be a sweater I talk about in the future. It's old, but it has some really great features, so I'll get to it eventually. But if you want to go out and look it up, it's kind of, I'll put a picture. So someone commented last time that they're new to the podcast and they like the segments. And I have been thinking about mentioning this for a while. I have added the segment titles to each part of the podcast for one reason, so that you can skip through the ones you don't want to watch. So if you're not a sweater knitter, when I put up the shawl of the week or the sweater of the week or the audiobook, whatever part you might not want to watch, that's the only reason that I'm including those, so that you could move through that part and not have to watch it if you didn't want to. I have trimmed those little dividers down to as narrow as they can go, so they should go by quite quickly. It's as skinny as I can make them in the iMovie app that I use, so I'm hoping that it doesn't kind of slow down things. It used to, I didn't realize that I could make them shorter, so they used to be longer, but now I've got that figured out too. So I'm getting more efficient as we move through this. Okay, I've got a little bit to talk about today, so let's get started. Let's do an audiobook of the week. I finished the 2 books that I loved last week. So many of you went and got those books on reserve right away. So I must have been a little overzealous in my sales pitch. I'm hoping that some of you have read them in 2 weeks and will come and chime in and tell me that you enjoyed them. You can always go back and make a comment on the video weeks later and let me know that you made a recipe or that you had a book, or you can always send me an email at Corey@iRockKnits.com. That will give me a heads up that I should keep doing what I'm doing, or Corey, you have bad book reviews, so don't tell us that the book is great if it's not. I try to just be honest, but I read those 2 books so fast, and I had all this kind of information in my head, and they were books that came back that I thought about afterwards, and they were thinking, not in the moment books, but afterwards. They can kind of come back. It's not really haunting you, but you know what I mean, right? You liked it. So I wanted something kind of quick and easy to kind of get through, and I started the John Grisham book. I just noticed that Cody's laying with his head up against the stool, and he was bumping it. And I'm not going to start over because I already started over once. So I'll try to edit out up until that point where he started bumping it, and then I've shifted everything over a little bit. Because if I get him up, then I got to settle him down again, because he thinks when I'm talking to him, and he wants me to pet him the whole time. So he's now laying under the table, and I just need him to stay there. Back to the book. So I had read a previous book to this one, Camino Winds, and this is Camino Island, and it was book 1 in this series that I didn't read because I started the second book, not unbeknownst to me. So I went back and finished that first book. And boy, I was really glad I did, because it gave you the in-depth backgrounds of all the characters and where they came from and why they're on the island and who knows who and all that. And I think he does an okay job of explaining that in book 2, but I just really like these. They're just enjoyable. There's some type of mystery to be solved, and I like the characters that he writes. So I did enjoy this. But then I tried starting 2 more books, and they weren't hitting that sweet spot that I had last time. So I started Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny, and I got an hour and 15 minutes in, and I kept thinking, I don't feel like I know what's going on. So, and I had been out and about. I think maybe I had to drive somewhere to do something. Anyway, and I was in the car, so I had listened for a long time, and I kept listening. I'm like, it's familiar, but not really. Well, then I came home, and I have a list in my phone of books of authors who have long lists of books that you should maybe read in order, and I had skipped one. So I was like, that's fine, just keep listening. And the more I listened, the more I was like, no, I need to know what happened. They keep referencing this other mystery from the last book. So I think I'm on book 4 or 5 of that series, and I skipped one. So then I stopped. I sent it back. On the Libby app, I returned the book, and then I started a new one called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It has come recommended by one of you and from my good friend Mary Brown, who you all know from this podcast. And it's just too pretty right now. Like, it's too soft and nice and sweet, and I'm just not in that headspace to have something be kind of slow and nice. I'm enjoying the content, but I turned it up in speed, and anyway, my mind was wandering. Let's put it that way. I just wasn't paying close enough attention. And I owned that one. I had bought that on Audible prior to the Libby switch. So I thought, I can come back to this. It's no problem. So now I restarted a new one. And as soon as I got 5 minutes in, I was like, this is it, right? Like, there's some intrigue. There's something going on. It's keeping my, brain engaged. I'm not wandering off. So I'm sure I'll have that finished on the next one. So I read one this week, started 2, now on the 3rd. Anyway, that's kind of how it goes, right? Sometimes it just doesn't trip your trigger in the moment. You got to be in the right frame of mind to listen to the one you're listening to. And so I just decided to give them up and come back to them in a little bit. Okay. I have 2 recipes of the week this week. 2 things that I made in the last 2 weeks. And my daughter Kylie was over. She had called one day and said, I need this recipe. I'm going to a lake thing. We're meeting at a lake and we're all going to social distance some, but we're all going to bring something to share to eat. And she and her boyfriend bought kayaks this year, so they've been spending a lot of time at the lakes. And I think maybe that's what they were going to do. People were going to go out and kayak and then come back in and eat. And so she said, remember that drink that Grandma Marge used to make, and it was frozen and it was really good and everybody liked it? And I was like, oh my gosh, Smash. I haven't made Smash in forever. So then she put this little bug in my ear, right? She made Smash. I gave her the recipe, and then I'm like, I need some Smash in my life. So this is an alcoholic beverage, and I don't drink alcohol. I don't remember the last time I had alcohol. When I was diagnosed with depression when I was 29 and then had severe depression later on, one of the things they talk about is alcohol as a depressant. When you stop drinking alcohol and then you try to have some, say when you're out with a group of people, it doesn't go very well. You get super sleepy, or you're just lethargic and you don't handle your liquor well. And so I got uncomfortable in those moments trying to have a glass of wine with people. And so now I'm just a Diet Coke and water girl. But I thought this would be really fun to make and have in the freezer. All that to say, here you go. If you want something really, really refreshing, 9 cups of water, 2 cups of sugar. Boil it until the sugar dissolves. So you just have to stir and heat it up. Then you add in 1 can of frozen orange juice, 1 can of frozen lemonade, and 1 can of frozen limeade. So you buy those little 6-ounce cans, dump them in, stir it up, and then you put in a pint of vodka. You could put in less, you could put in a different alcohol of your choice. This one calls for vodka. Then you freeze that in a plastic milk carton or in a ice cream pail, and it won't freeze too super hard, right? It'll get iced, but it won't get, well, it can get pretty hard, but it's a slush, basically. So then you take an ice cream scoop and you scoop out off the top of that, or you cut off the top of take your milk jug apart and cut off the top. That's what my mom used to do. She used to pack it in the cooler when we go camping. When the adults were going to have evening drinks, she would pack it, and then it would be her part of her ice that kept the cooler cold. And then you scoop that into, well, I have pint jars that have handles on them. So they're really cute. So I always serve this drink. And I haven't made this in years. I don't even know how Kylie thought of it. But you scoop like probably 2/3 full of this slushy stuff, and then you pour 7-Up or Sierra Mist or whatever over the top of it and stir it up. So you're getting, a little bit of alcohol depending on how much of the slushy mixture you put in. And it is so tart and so refreshing. I wanted to make it without alcohol when I made it because I thought that might be just as refreshing, but I didn't know if the whole freezing part of the alcoholic beverage would work as well and make the slushie that I really wanted it to be. So I made it and put it in the freezer, and then we never had any. So Kylie came over a weekend ago on Sunday to pick something up from Ross, and she stayed for supper. We were having BLTs, and she's like, oh, I haven't had a BLT all summer. So I said, we could have a Smash, and she's like, you haven't had a Smash yet? So we each had 1 glass. I still have an ice cream pail full of Smash in my refrigerator, but it really is good. So I thought, she said, you could share this as a recipe on your podcast. Yes, I could. My family is getting really good at making recommendations for things that should be on my podcast. My husband and I were boating yesterday, and he was like, do you want to take a video of this so you can put it on the podcast? I was like, I'm perfectly qualified to think about whether or not I want to video something, you guys. Anyway. Okay, recipe number 2. I have no idea how this is going to go over with some of you, or if any of you, it's garbage day. I should know better. So I don't know how well this new recipe is going to go over with some of you, or if any of you will have this memory from your past. But in my family, something that we always made when I was growing up is roast beef spread. So my mom would make a big roast, because there are 3 kids in the family, so 2 boys. She'd make a big roast, but there'd always be leftovers. So she would get out her old KitchenAid mixer and put the meat attachment on the front and put the leftover roast beef through that meat attachment. And then you put in mayonnaise or salad dressing or whatever your preference is for making like a tuna salad or a chicken salad. Pickle relish, celery salt, and you just mix that up. And I don't have a meat attachment on my KitchenAid, so I use a food processor. I have a little one and I have a bigger one, and I just cut the roast beef, leftover roast beef, into cubes and put it in there and just grind it down till it gets kind of shredded. So I bought a big roast at the meat market and brought it home several weeks ago. It was in the freezer. And I said to my husband, I'm going to make roast for dinner, which we stopped having because Kylie doesn't like roast beef. So we stopped kind of having it at the house because if you're going to cook for 3, you want 3 people to eat it, right? One of those things. So we just didn't have it that often. And I said, and then I'm going to grind it up so we can have roast beef spread for lunches because I'm tired of eating a turkey sandwich for lunch every day. And he said, oh my gosh, roast beef spread. We haven't had roast beef spread forever. I think in the Midwest, it's common to go to a baby shower or a wedding reception and have those little ham salad, egg salad sandwiches. And that's really what this is just taking a meat, a beef, and making it into a spread. But the pickle relish, the celery salt, the mayonnaise, it's delicious. Might be delicious just because I grew up eating it. So those of you that are adventurous in your cooking, or you have a roast in your freezer, you might want to try it. Now, I don't have exact measurements, but I'll put an idea of how much I put together. But you're really just basically mixing it up and then tasting to see. And then we eat it on bread or croissants, or a bagel or whatever with a piece of lettuce. We always have a piece of iceberg lettuce on it. You could certainly add tomato, avocado, anything to this spread. But it was a reminiscing moment. Kylie heard we had spread, so she came out that next weekend, and she's moving. And so she's bringing stuff here to get rid of Goodwill, picking up stuff she has in the basement, getting boxes, getting packing materials, all that. So she's been going back and forth quite a bit from our house to her house. And so we're seeing her a lot more often. And she said, do you still have roast beef spread? And I said, we do. And I think it was just a moment this week where we had smash and we also had this roast beef spread. And I thought, those are the 2 recipes I'm going to share this week, because they'll probably both be things that people don't know or don't have in their repertoire, or maybe don't want in their repertoire. Don't tell me that part. Just fast forward through the recipes this week, okay? I have an oopsie daisy from last week. I told you that there was a podcast out there and I misnamed it again. I don't know what my problem is with going from YouTube, the names and titles on YouTube, to writing them down to getting them in their podcast notes. But the podcast was Quiet Corner, not Quiet Knitter. So if you went and looked and you couldn't find it and you're like, Corey strikes again, I did. That was my mistake. And then I have 3 podcasts for you for this week. There is a brand new podcast episode out by Knitting with Knit Boop, and that's Yura. And she has been kind of an activist on Instagram since the whole thing with the knitting community a year ago. And I happened to be following her during that. And she's Korean, and she was a voice of inclusivity for people who had never seen Korean knitters, weren't seeing themselves in, public posts. And so there were people that found her and were kind of building a sense of community around that. And so she's decided to start a podcast. So if you are interested in finding a podcast with maybe a bit of a different perspective, or someone who looks like you, right, instead of not, that might be one that you'd like to start. So Knitting with Knit Boop. And she also is a designer. She has a couple of designs out that she talks about on this first podcast. So that's up on YouTube. Then I watched Woolen Forest with Maria in South Carolina, and she had a bunch of episodes. Sometimes I just feel like, where do these people hide that they don't come up and I don't see them? So I'm going to keep passing these on to you guys. She and her husband are currently looking to move to Virginia, I think, and she knit the new little linen vest by, who was it by? Cieslak, was it? Is that who made it? Anyway, it's darling on her, so you might want to go take a look at that. And then I watched 2 weeks ago, but didn't mention it. I finally found, and someone had suggested this podcast to me. I went out and looked to me like she hadn't had episodes in years. Then I went back and found her and didn't have time to watch it or something. But anyway, I may or may not have mentioned it, and I watched an entire podcast because she's an amazing crocheter, and I'm learning some crochet, so I thought this would be a really good one for me. World Peas 00, and that's Marie in Colorado, and it's World Peas, like you, and so I'll put it on the screen. I'm doing a terrible job of describing that name of that podcast, but if you put in world as one word, peas and as one word, and then 00, which is what she has in her title, it comes up, but it doesn't come up with her header, and it just has podcasts from 4 years ago. And you have to put those words together without spaces, and then knits is separate, and then it came up for me. And I don't know if that's true of all search engines are going to have that problem, but her crocheted stuff is exquisite. She's also a knitter. She's beautiful. She's got a beautiful room, good lighting. She's been doing this for a long time. I started following on Instagram and said, I apologize that I didn't find you before, because someone said you would really like this podcast, and then I couldn't find current podcasts. So that's what happened on that one. Okay. I've got, looks like 4 tips or tricks this week. I have a picture that someone posted on Instagram, and I've heard of this, but I thought maybe not everybody has. I've been going back through my podcasts. I'll tell you about it later. But in doing that, I found out that I have a ton of people who watch the sock episode. So there are some avid sock fans out there, and way more than watch my weekly podcast posts. And so this is a sock tip. So I thought, well, I'm going to share that for sure. This comes from Liz Cork Knits on Instagram, and she says, when I start my socks, once the increases move to every other row, because she's doing toe up socks, she pulls the yarn tail through the toe to the front. So here's the picture. Here's the yarn tail, and she pulled it through the inside and out, and that's the front of her sock. And then the other side obviously would be the back. But someone commented on this and said that they pull it out here or here, depending on where their beginning of round is. So they pull it through to the front, but off to the side where their beginning of round marker would go. So if the marker falls off, or you don't know where you are, or you don't use a marker, I thought both of those tips were really good ideas for keeping track. I know I have some new sock knitters that watch the podcast, for keeping track of what's the front and what's the back, especially if you have a patterning going on. And also where your beginning of row is, or your round, obviously. So I thought that was a pretty good tip. Liz Cork Knits on Instagram. Thanks, Liz. Many of you will be aware of Stephanie Pearl McPhee. She is a knitting humorist and often makes fun of herself for having that as her title. She's written a number of books. I own several of them. I probably should have brought those in with me today, but you guys are all capable of doing the Google and look it up. But Stephanie, during the quarantine time, had all of her travel canceled, and she's a really big name speaker. All her events always sell out. She's very knowledgeable and funny. And I have heard her speak a number of times, actually, even when I was, when was that? When Kylie was in high school. Yeah, wow. This will be my Corey stories right here. When Kylie was in high school, I took a class from Stephanie Pearl McPhee at Stephen B. And the day that I was there, that afternoon, Kylie was trying out for speech for the first time. And I had taken her to hear Stephanie. No, that was after. So it was interesting because I had my phone sitting out because I was waiting to hear how it went and whether or not she found out if she had made the high school speech team. She'd never done speech before and was thinking about doing debate, and that became a huge part of her life later. But in that moment, Stephanie happened to be standing there, and I said to her, my daughter is trying out for the speech team in knitting in humorous interpretation. And she started to laugh and she said, tell her to go slow and speak loudly. So I texted Kylie. It was just a moment that I had with this woman that I didn't really know. And I said, and then we found out later that Kylie had made the team. And I think we were eating dinner at Stevens, or we had all gone out. It just became this moment of her encouraging me in the moment as a mother of someone. And so I think it was the following spring, I took Kylie to the Yarn Over knitting event because Stephanie was the keynote speaker. And Stephanie did her new talk. And because Kylie was now doing humor, I thought it would be fun for her. It was more fun for me to have her there, to be honest, right? You want to share with your kids and they're kind of like, okay, Mom, I'll go along with you, but this probably isn't really my thing. But we ended up sitting. I have a soft voice today. I don't know what that's all about. We ended up sitting at her table to eat supper because they were saving seats and there was nowhere else to sit. And so I just said, well, we have to sit here because there are no other seats. We had gone through the line. We're holding plates of food and there were 2 seats there, and I said, we have to take these. There isn't anywhere else to sit. And so we ended up sitting with her. It ended up just being this kind of cyclical thing that happened. But back to my point, Stephanie has started a Patreon page. And if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a place to support creative artists in their endeavors. You can go out and sponsor someone and give them a couple of your dollars every month, and then they usually will reward you in some way with some type of product. They will, give you first dibs on something or some type of ownership of something that they've made. But since we were in the pandemic, Stephanie uploaded 9 sock videos, well, 8 sock videos and one on the pesky SSK or something, to her Patreon. And there's only one price. It's $6 for a month to become a member of her Patreon page and then have access to those videos. So if you have never heard Stephanie speak, have always wanted to hear her talk, though they went up in May. I knew it was happening. I didn't go out there and get on the board, but this week I went out, I paid my $6. I have the 9 videos to watch, and I know that I will learn something, even though I've knit, 100 pairs of socks. She will be engaging and funny, and it's a nice way to support her since all of her teaching gigs have gone by the wayside, as have many, designers and speakers and teachers. So, and I don't think that there's a limit on how many months you have to kind of subscribe for. I think you can cancel at any time. But my guess is she will then continue to put up other content as this goes forward, and then you can decide if it's pertinent to you or not. But to get 9 Stephanie Pearl McPhee videos is definitely worth it. I mean, I would highly recommend that, even though I haven't started watching them yet. So you could go check that out, patreon.com. And then you put in Stephanie Pearl McPhee. Okay, we have a check-in to do this month because at the first of the year, we did New Year's resolutions. Remember? I gave you all 10 New Year's resolutions that I thought we could all try to kind of subscribe to. I don't know that anybody planned to keep up with that, but I was in my phone the other day and I saw that they're still sitting there, and I thought, gosh, I should revisit that and see how I did. So I'm going to read to you the 10 resolutions that I proposed for this year. That was prior to knowing that we were all going to be in lockdown and during a pandemic, so this could be interesting. Knit every day. Teach someone to knit. Give away a skein of yarn or a pair of knitting needles. Read a book. Learn a new knitting technique or stitch pattern. Buy yarn or a project bag from a BIPOC maker. Make someone laugh or smile every week. Do a random act of kindness. Shop local monthly. Gift a Ravelry pattern. Finish 2 whips. So, make a little note. I probably should have had you check them off as you sat there. Are any of you, could you nod kind of along to a lot of those? I think most of them I can say happened. I don't know that I taught someone to knit in the first 3 months of the year this year. My library classes were scheduled to start in April and May, where I teach a lot of that, and I do them in the fall, but I did not teach them in the winter. I definitely am, reading books and trying to be uplifting to people and make people laugh and smile. I've definitely gifted some Ravelry patterns because I do giveaways with other people that are having contests and things. So I thought it was a nice reminder that at the beginning of the year we set some intentions. Some of you may have set your own knitting intentions. Maybe you were doing the Make 9 where you choose 9 projects that you're going to knit during the year, but let me know if you have a resolution that you kept or one that you've let lapse and you're going to get back to it now. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to take a look at those, go back. Okay, the 4th tip this week on Instagram, Melanie Berg, who is Maryland, is got a video that came out on July 9th on how to style a rectangular shawl. And I was just scrolling through and she started, do you not know how to wear this? And I'm going to show you several ways to wear it. And there are videos out on YouTube for how to wear scarves and shawls. I have done some in my classes that I've referred to. You can Google how to wear a triangular shawl, how to wear a rectangle, but this one was quite good. She has a new shawl out. It's a white mohair. It's called Schnee, Schnee, I think. She's German. I took 2 years of German in high school. Does Schnee mean fast? I don't think so. That's what popped into my mind. Anyway, So if you go to her Instagram feed, you can type in Melanie Berg and find her to follow. She's an amazing designer, shawl designer mostly. On her IGTV feed, right on her page, or you can scroll down because she also had it as a post on July 9th, and then you can click through to watch. She had how to style a rectangular shawl. It was great. She did it in just a few minutes, and she styled her shawl a number of ways. She's a fitness person too. I think she is a rock climber. Yeah, she's got lovely arms, really strong. So there you go. Those are your tips for this week. Let's do the shawl of the week. This is not a shawl I knit. This was a gift, but I love it, and so I thought, it's next in the alphabetical order of shawls, although I've jumped around a little to add some shawls in that are new or designs that I've made. This is called Purple Allium. My printer is running out of colored ink, so the pictures did not turn out very well, so I'm not even going to bother. I'll put it up on the screen. It's by Cindy Garland. She is a designer out of Chicago, and she does yarn kits on Etsy, I believe. Wild Prairie Knits. She sells her patterns, and I think she does knit-alongs. I think that's what this is. Renee had done a couple of her knit-alongs. I think she made a red and blue one. A red, white, and blue was really pretty, and then she made this one, which I think just screamed Corey colors. So I got it as a gift. This came out in September of 2013. 46 people have made it. It is first of 3 shawls in the Wild Prairie Knits Bold Colors of Nature Fall Mini Club. So it was a club. Pattern was originally only available within the club. The first pattern in the club was this one. It's $6 on Ravelry. It includes both a full-size shawl and a shawlette option. It's worked from the top down. It's crescent shaped, done in fingering weight yarn, and has the option of adding accent beads. I think you can all see those. Renee used these lime green beads, just perfect pop of color on there. And beads always give a nice little weight to the bottom of a shawl, just even with just a few across the bottom there. The bottom of that shawl is just really nicely weighted and stays on much better than like a lace-edged shawl. I'm going to get this right now. So it's a relaxing knit and stockinette stitch with stripes. The pattern is written and charted, and their friends at Stunning String are offering yarn kits for either the shawl or 2 shawlettes, which contain enough yarn and beads to complete either. So Stunning String Studios. I knew there was a yarn something kit or yarn dyers involved in this, and since I didn't make it, I didn't remember. Oh gosh, that's interesting. She lists the skills needed at the bottom of the page here. Basic increases, decreases, Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, beading is optional. It has a little design here, a diamond shape, and then just this little bit of lace here. And I just thought this showed it off to its best advantage. See how pretty? Yeah, so that's you guys know my love of raspberry, right? I could not love that more. Raspberry and lime. I just ordered some orange yarn to go some raspberry yarn for a sweater. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. If it comes, I might show you guys how wild it is. I wonder if well, it's probably way up high there. Anyway, Purple Allium. So thank you, Renee, for the gift, because it's beautiful, and I think it makes just a lovely shawl for people to think about making. And then I have an oopsie daisy for you today. Can we call this section The sweater oopsie daisy? No, I shouldn't say that. I wore this. This was a bunch of yarn that I purchased long ago, before I understood the concept of dye lots. And sometimes you get your yarn home and you have an oddball skein. So I decided to try to design, this is back in the early days. When did I think I made this in 2006, 7, 8, something like that, when we were living in Virginia. And I was not designing anything other than the felted bags, which I'm going to do a podcast episode on all the felted stuff one of these times. But I thought I'm going to design this so that I can use the darker colored skeins for this band across the waist. And then the lighter colored skeins will be everything else, and then the darker color will be around the neckline, so that I had like 2 skeins of dark and 4 skeins of lighter variegated yarn. So this is the Cotton Fizz sleeveless tank. I kind of used numbers from a Naturally Hand Knit Yarns tank top, but that pattern is not out there any longer. I looked today and it's not, I mean, this was a long time ago. My notes say, having trouble with dye lots not matching, so trying to use them to my advantage. Redesigned the top to have an empire waist, so that I can run a cable the opposite direction in the darker colorway. So basically, I had this cable running down the center, and then I thought I would take, boy, it looks like a moving mess when I look at it from here, but I wanted this cabled piece to run underneath my bust around the whole sweater. And I thought that would be great. That would be the dark part. And then I got to here and it wasn't long enough and didn't have enough light colored yarn to make it longer. And so I thought, well, I have this dark green stripe here. I'm going to just make another dark green stripe here, which was a really horrific idea at the time. I had enough yarn to make this, just if I had to move this up here, which I could still do, but I don't wear it anymore. It's, you know, it was inexpensive cotton yarn that I believe I bought on clearance. But then I did pick up around the neck and around the sleeves and do a picot bind off all the way around. And so what I got out of this was a really good learning experience, right? Like I had an idea how to make a fix, how can I do this? And I decided I'm going to just go for it and give it a try. And I did wear it a couple of summers. Like sometimes I just don't care, right? Like it doesn't bother me that I have a stripe right there. Now, I did wear it at a knitting event. I wore it at, I think, the first ZK. And I look back at pictures now and I think, right? What was I thinking? But in the making of that and learning how to make this cable stitch on this way and then pick up and go down this way, it was a concept for future ideas and kind of developing and figuring out kind of where things go from here, like how to make, how big does the armhole need to be. It was all those moving parts that kind of propelled me into then being able to fix other sweaters that had issues. And I have done a lot of adjusting for dye lot issues. I have several designs, several projects in my closet that had, you know, dye lot problems and trying to make creative fixes for that. And so I think sometimes you can do the collar and the cuffs in the darker color. You can do the button band in the darker color. If you run out of yarn and you have to buy yarn after the fact when you first brought the first, you can think about it ahead of time. And all of that made my ability to plan projects ahead of time. Like I would just never not check now. I would always check for my dye lots. Part of that is because I spent so much time figuring out dye lots. And this is, you know, an old sweater. I have an alphabetical list of all my sweaters and all my shawls. And so I've been going through them, and that it came up as next today. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to skip over that, right? Like no one's going to need to see that or, you know, anything like that. But I just thought, gosh, that might not be such a bad thing to show people, that you can make a plan around dye lots and try to work through stuff like that. So I did. I just have to pause right there. My watch was just blowing up with text messages, and the pinging was just irritating me, and I hope it didn't bother anyone. But the Knit Two Together group for tomorrow they've been messaging each other. I had 12 messages, bing, 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 and my groceries are going to be delivered. So I got to wrap this up. I have just a few special notes this week to share with everyone. I need you all to go to my website and sign up with your email on the front page of subscribe on the front page of iRockKnits.com, because I provide coupon codes for when I have patterns coming out. And you're going to want the coupon code when the patterns come out in August. So we're looking at about a month away from the big ebook reveal. The test knitters are amazing. They are finding all the little mistakes and little things that I need to fix. The charts have been a huge kerfuffle for me. I had to redo 51 charts from the book, all the words. The whole project has been an experience for me to be doing it during the pandemic, because it really gave me something to buckle down and think about every day and work hard at. And I think there are going to be 10 patterns in the ebook, and so I will definitely be giving out a coupon code for that. And most of you might say to yourselves, I would never knit that sweater that has all the words on it. But there are a couple of things in here that you're definitely going to want to knit, right? There are two for sure that I think people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to knit that. The test knitters samples are so cute. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about it. I've shared a tiny little sneak peek on a couple of different Zoom things, so some of you may know what I'm talking about, but I'm a skeptic sometimes when it comes to whether or not things can happen in a timely manner. So I have been worried about giving sneak peeks early and letting people know what's in it and what it's going to be, for fear that it wouldn't happen, I wouldn't get it done in time, people would be waiting, I wouldn't find test knitters. All that stuff is in my head. So I haven't let anybody really share too much, but in the next week or two, we're going to start kind of giving sneak peek checks. So I just wanted to put that out there. Go sign up so you can get the coupon code. Plus, you'll know when it's coming out. I spent a ton of time making lists of the podcast episodes and what sweaters and what shawls I talked about. Is I'll have people reach out and want to ask, and they can't find that, and I can't find them either, because the title on YouTube isn't always whole. They'll cut off part of so you have to click through them and whatever. So I made a list for each of the 50 episodes that had which sweater, the sweater I was wearing, what sweater I talked about, and what shawl I talked about. And then I'm going to put that in several places. So for right now, it's in the Ravelry group, but I'm also going to be adding that to my website, I believe, and updating it frequently. So if you get to the point now where you say, I wanted to remember that sweater, I should be able to find it for you. But if you want to look, it's in the Ravelry group under all shawls from podcast episodes or something like that, all sweaters from podcast episodes. So I did get that done yesterday, one of the things that I've been wanting to do. Do you guys know about this Empower People bandana knit pattern? I am pretty excited about it. It's a little purple cowl. I told you my ink was running out, so I didn't do it in color. But I sent this out to both my knitting groups, and several of us are going to knit it. So if you'd like to get involved in a small way with some crafting and activism, this is the picture of the little cowl. It's garter stitch, and you just need a skein of purple yarn in worsted weight. and there's a crochet version and a sewing version. I saw the other day that someone did it in brioche, and I would love to do that. I think that would be really fun. But the pattern is free, and they're asking people to knit the purple bandanas and wear them to vote. It's their endeavor to try to get people out to vote. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It doesn't look like things are going to be opening and getting better soon. It's going to be more difficult to vote than ever before. I think lines will be longer, things will move slower. If you need to do a mail-in ballot, perhaps you need to do that. But this is an Empower People bandana, and it's by Casa Pinka, and I will link it in the show notes, as well as you can go to Ravelry, and it's coming up on the front page often because the pattern is free. So that will be something that we could all knit together. I'm looking for someone who's a Pinterest expert, someone who's a whiz at Pinterest. I have been talking to some people and watching some classes on growing your business, and one of the things that you need to do is be more active on Pinterest. I need to be engaging with more people there. I need some pins to put up. I have all my patterns on Pinterest, but unless you're more active. And I tried to do a pin and post it this week that would send people to my website, and it got rejected. I didn't do it correctly. It was one to have like an ad. So if you are a social media whiz, or you love Pinterest, or you're running a business on Pinterest, or you have like a lot of knowledge about Pinterest, or you know someone, do you know someone who has that skill set? Will you reach out to me, because I don't know what I'm doing on there, and I have an account and I have my patterns, but I watched a crafting business interview thing, and the lady was like, all of her hits and all of her new business is coming via Pinterest, and I was like, well, mine's not. I don't have people finding my patterns via Pinterest. So with a few thousand followers online or here on YouTube, but 8 million followers worldwide, you know that there are more people out there that just aren't getting to you. It's like finding podcasts, right? I need help. So, and this could be a paid long-term gig for someone, or a one-time teach me what I need to know. I don't know what I'm doing. So I just thought I'd put it out there. Oh, have you guys been watching and following the iRockKnitters hashtag? You can just click on the button at the top. Oh, of course I made it go away. Of iRockKnitters, and then follow that, so it will come up in your feed, so you don't even have to go over and look all the time. And I had not done that, so I had to go and follow and go back and like some people's stuff, but it is super fun. So the Toad Hollow ladies were making this hat, which I have cast on but have not got any farther than the hat had some sizing issues. It was a free pattern from many years ago, and so people were kind of reworking some of that. But isn't it pretty? That's that Godric hat. And then look at this lovely sweater someone's knitting. Oh my goodness, it was just really fun. The Hi Ho Shawl by Chris is out there, which I love his colors. Someone posted a picture of these darling scissors that are pink, which I said, if you're a pink person, you gotta have those. So it's just been really fun. Randy's always knitting socks, which I love watching Randy knit socks. Someone's got a scarf on the needles, Donna. And Downriver Knitter is doing quilt squares, which are really fun. She's got 2 of those posted in there. And let me see, where's the other one? Teresa Olson knit a headband. Just that picture is darling. I need her to knit one for me, because I need one for my bangs are getting long and I don't get them cut, so I have to trim them myself, and I don't do such a great job. But yeah, there's all kinds of activity going on over there. So now post over there so that we can see what you're knitting. We can like your stuff and we can find you. Some of you, I don't follow. I don't know who you are because I've not talked to you or never met you in person. And so now I can follow some people via that hashtag. So I really appreciate people using that, but just go over and follow it. It'll just come up in your feed and you won't know that person. And maybe you'll see 3 or 4 things that they've knit and you decide to follow them too. So yeah, I was tickled about that. I don't know how many total posts we have, but just under 100 right now. That's kind of fun. I have a new collaboration coming out this fall with some ladies that you all know. So that's exciting. We've had 2 Zoom meetings and gotten things ironed out on that. I have watched a couple of television shows, and so I'm just going to put a little thing in here because at night I'm sitting up, and this weekend I started watching a show called Alone, where they drop 10 people off in the wilderness and they have to survive on their own. So they drop them in 10 separate locations, and the person who lasts the longest wins. Well, I've stayed up till 2 a.m. the last 2 nights. I want to know who won so bad and if they're going to make it, and they're starving and they don't have enough water, and they do kill animals to survive. So if that's going to be offensive to you, right? But, moose and wolverines and squirrels and rabbits and fish. And if they can't, they're starving. And then the medics come once every a week or 10 days to check on them to make sure they're, okay. But some of them, just fascinating. I watched season 6. It came up on Netflix, and I was working on a design late in the evening, must have been Saturday night. And I didn't want to have something on that I had to concentrate on, so I clicked on Netflix, and one of the things, it was there, and then I watched the whole thing because it was so excellent. It was just very good. And then, speaking of ladies that we all know and love, why did no one tell me about Once Upon a Time? How come I didn't know about that? I was completely clueless. It's amazing. I've watched 7 episodes, didn't even know I kind of knew it existed, but I didn't know that I needed to watch it. So I'm not a huge fan of fantasy and science fiction. That's not my gig, but let's be realistic. Most of television is fantasy, right? This stuff never really happens. But they're going back and telling the fairy tales with real life characters in this town, and you have to follow and think about who they are when they come in and what story they're telling and what they're carrying with them or whatever to figure out oh gosh, that's Rumpelstiltskin, that's Snow White, that's so-and-so. And then there's a whole part that's back in time for what happened before this. I'm just hooked. And I had no idea. None. And I didn't know that the Toad Hollow ladies were doing the fairy tales probably because their love of Once Upon a Time, the show. There are 7 seasons. So anyway, I can't wait to sit down and watch after supper. I'm just running to the family room so I can sit down and... So I'm designing this piece as an extra for the ebook. And I had this, it's a good idea. And I was knitting away, and then I started watching these shows, and I got this far in, and it's upside down. So much for that idea of paying attention to what I'm designing and not what I'm... So I threw it in the basket and started working on a fisherman's rib blanket because that's mine. Listen, if you haven't cast on a fisherman's rib item or have never done it, and you have scrap yarn, you do a setup row, which is basically kind of like a knit purl, and then you start the fisherman's rib, and it's the same 2 stitches the whole way. I know I showed you all my fisherman's rib blanket, but man, I love knitting that thing. I've got another one on the needles. It's a present surprise for someone, and I took a bunch of more scrap yarn, and I'm holding it double, and I could just work on that forever. Changing the colors is fun. The stitch pattern is fun. For me, it's fairly easy to see when I've made a mistake. It's knit one in the row below, knit one in the row below. The whole way, that's all you do. And knit one in the row below, after you've done like 2 rows, there's a hole there. There's a place to put your needle in. It's not fussy. So I highly recommend using scraps. I would say that mine's at worsted weight right now. So if you wanted to do worsted weight scraps and then hold fingering weight scraps double, you would have, or even DK. It's just I have designing to get done. I have commitments that I have to meet, and I just wanted to knit on that. So I also watched a couple of documentaries. I talked about last time I watched 13th. This time I watched I Am Not Your Negro. That was a really good informational, if you're trying to do some anti-racism work, trying to learn, try to be a better person and advocate. That was excellent. I watched a movie that I don't know if I can recommend or not. It was called Do the Right Thing, and it came out, 20 some years ago. So it's quite old. And I was watching, I was thinking, I don't know, it's okay. It was maybe poorly done, little weirdly directed. The actors weren't great. And then I got to the last 20 minutes. And it was so eye-opening, and it was so just really, really good. It was produced by Spike Lee, and he must have been a baby when he acted in this. He's super young, just a skinny little kid. But I would say if you are the type of person who will hang in with something until the end and then get a reward, then it's worth watching. So go out and read the description of it and see if it would be something that you'd be interested in. So, a couple more things I watched on TV. Anyway, this has been disjointed today. The dog did not behave. He's not going to get a good report when his dad comes home. He wiggled and jiggled and needed petting and wanted supper early, and so it's going to be a little chopped up this time. So many of you had stories to tell me regarding my story from last time where I used hair conditioner on my face because it was coconut oil based, right? So I kept a tally because after the first few comments, I realized that people were going to tell me their crazy stories, which has been awesome. So we got 172 comments this week. Go back and look. People's stories are great. There was a story about eating dog jerky by mistake. There was a story about furniture polish. There was a story about jeans worn backwards. A story about shaving butter that someone borrowed from someone. There was a story about hand lotion in hair. There was a story about someone putting hand soap on as lotion. There was a story about deodorant and hairspray. I mean, you guys rocked my world. It was so fun to read some of your crazy stories. I think I got most of them jotted down, but I went back and read them because they're great. They're so funny, and we can laugh at ourselves, and I think that's great. That's what it's all about. I also want to mention that our friend Kathy got in touch several times, and she's hanging in there. Things are tough in her world right now. Her mother and her husband passed away. I've told you all that story. She's just a follower of the podcast who I had talked with a few times. And the thing that she said that struck me the most is her husband had taken care of everything all these years, and now she had to deal with it. And I thought, how often have we heard this? So I'm going to say to all of you, if you're not the one in your household that's paying the bills and taking care of the things, you need to make your list. You need to sit down with that person in your life and get that taken care of, and vice versa. If you are the woman in the household that is paying the bills, taking care of the things, you need a folder, and the folder needs to have the list in it, right? So that when things like this happen, it doesn't make it harder for us. It's already hard. So make your lists. Figure out, get all your account numbers together, get all your payments, your yearlies, your quarterlies, your monthlies, whatever you pay and however you keep track of, and life insurance and annuities and mortgages, all that. It should all be in one place so that you are not left with just a muddle. You're already going to be a muddle. So I said to Kathy, I had a neighbor whose husband died suddenly, and she was in the same boat, and he hadn't kept up in their life insurance, and she didn't know. So it was, eye-opening. Anyway, let's finish up today with the hellos, shall we? I got a huge list, but it's always fun to do them. Let's finish up today with the hellos. Debbie McKenzie, Emma Moss, Maggie Two Sticks, Sharon Noonan, Peggy Skaggs, who won the giveaway last time, and her name is not Nana Volvo because she's a grandma with a Volvo, because she has a grandson and she didn't want to be called Grandma Doggy because the other grandma was called Grandma Kitty. I love stories like that. So thanks, Patty. Donna Bauman, Meg Carr, Deb Vandermolen, Tenzi Marcos Bodker, Lynn Briegel, Jeanette Robertson, Lynn Golis, I think I spelled that one wrong, Abigail of Covert Knits. Hi, Abigail. She's got a new podcast up that just went up this week in the last couple days. Kathy Goodman, sending you a big hug. Joan Howard, Robin Gasser, Dawn of Frivolous and Frugal. Hi, Dawn. Olivia Mankey, Barbara Johnson, Becky, who is Wisconsin Tatter 1, Karen Tomlin, Kelly Mathern, Mary Case, Susan Schwarzenberger. Hi, Susan. Nikisha Grant, Heather Wilson, Brandy Stoker, Andrea Rivera, Peggy Bork, Pat Howes, Pat Murphy, Katriana Alsop, Lynn Kosher, Danielle Brown, Amy R., Michelle M., Edina Cole, HBWT 40, Jenny Davis, Julie Stark, Lisa Lawton, Rachel Dobson, Suzanne Selby, Martha Meyer, Arlene Torres Ordalaza, Linda Gesling, Charlene Taylor, Luann Hendricks, A. Catalano, Brandy Stoker, Rochelle in Seattle, Chantel R., Glenda Bathgate, Kristen H., Tina Kircher, June Clifford, Suzanne Scott, who asked me to put closed captioning on the videos in this YouTube. I'm going to work on that. The one little bit of research I did before I started podcasting today was that one of the options is for me to type in everything I've said. That's not going to happen. I don't know. Anyway. But there seemed to be an automatic one that they're concerned about because not all the words come out correctly. So Suzanne, I'm going to work on that. I promise. It might not happen on this video because I might have had to do something. Well, no, it should be able to happen if I can get it to work. Bless This Home with Love, Stacy Feichtner, Ellen Jimboss, Walda Clark, Mar Simmons. I think that's supposed to be Mary, probably. Kathy B., Barbara, Margaret Webby, Stitch and Amy, Pat Wagner, Melinda Zaccardi Russo, Christine Carr, Linda Fisher, Sandra Boyle, Amy Mickelson, Karen H., Whole Lotta Craft, Jane Taylor, Michelle of Knit Takes Two, Jessie's Mom 12, Carol Morrison, Eileen Tomero, Tomero. That's all you have to do. Tomero. But I get it wrong every time. Scold me, Eileen. It's ridiculous. Cheryl Lacemaker, Karen Esenbach, Rachel Weisenstein, Christina of Creations by a Yankee, Angela Jenkins, Emily Doyen, one of my test knitters, and Chris Osborne. So thank you to everyone. If you have a name on YouTube that's not your first and last name and you write a comment to me, will you sign it with your first name? You don't have to give, your first and last name, but some of you have, things that, and then I forget from time to time, like I'll click through or I'll go to Instagram and I'll look it up, and I want to be able to say hello to you, but if some of you sign your name, others of you comment and you don't sign your name, and I always put my name, and you guys know who you're talking to, so put your name, because I just want to get it right. I just want to do it correctly. Will you all please subscribe to the podcast? If you have not hit the subscribe button for iRock Knits, why not? It doesn't hurt. Click the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up on the bottom of this podcast. Turn on the notifications, the little bell, so that you get a little ding that tells you that a new podcast is up. But that really helps me. And some of you are super loyal to me and always comment, and you're super supportive and you write really nice things, but you haven't subscribed to the podcast. So come on, give me a little love on that end. Until next time, no green bananas, waddle on, keep it colorful, and keep your fork. Bye. Love you all. Subscribe. Somebody got to come along learning how to be a little boat dog so you can go fishing with Dad.
The podcast.
Lake owner with a sense of humor. Coming out to check my raspberries. I was out here and I didn't bring a bucket, so I had to go back in. So I got some here, and then I'm gonna keep picking. I don't do too much to these, and they just keep growing every year. I have them all along this stone wall. I'm not sure, but this might be milkweed, which I've got some in the ditch out back, but I'm gonna have to go check. That would be exciting. Well, the Japanese beetles are here too, so I'm gonna have to bring out my bags about this time every year. I don't want to spray anything, and we try not to. Oh no, you don't, you two little procreating right on my leaves. I don't know what these pods are either. This shrub just grew here and it's big and takes up a lot of space, so I leave it. But I broke one open, and that's what the inside looks like. Somebody will tell me. Well, definitely raspberry season.